All right, today we are diving into one of history's most, truly bizarre and enduring mysteries. It's a story that sits right on that razor's edge between fact and folklore, the Green Children of Woolpit. The central question of this whole legend is just staggering, right? In the middle of the 12th century, did two kids with actual green skin really just appear in an English village, supposedly from another world? It sounds completely made up.
Okay, so when they're first discovered, it's just this cascade of pure strangeness. You got a brother and a sister, and their skin is tinged completely green. They're speaking a language that nobody recognizes, wearing clothes made out of some material that nobody has ever seen before, and they're found, just terrified, weeping, near these wolf traps. To the people who found them, it honestly looked like they had just climbed right out of the ground.
Okay, so to really understand this, we have to go back in time, right to the exact moment this whole legend was born.
So picture this. The year is somewhere in the 1150s. We're in Woolpit, a small village in Suffolk, England. It's harvest time, right? So you've got reapers out, working in the fields, and they suddenly stumble upon this incredible sight. Two lost, terrified, and completely disoriented children who look, well, like nothing they have ever seen before.
But here's the thing. How do you separate a genuine historical event from just a piece of folklore, especially a story as wild as this one? Well, the first step is to look at the world they appeared in.
You have to understand this was not a peaceful time in England. Not at all. It was a period known as the Anarchy, a brutal, nearly 2-decade-long civil war. I'm talking chaos, famine, people being displaced, and, this is crucial, it was a time when superstition was at an all-time high. People were basically primed to see marvels and omens everywhere they looked.
Which, of course, begs the question, in a world so steeped in fear and a belief in the supernatural, why on earth should we take this story seriously? Why isn't it just another fairy tale?
Well, here's why we take it seriously. This wasn't just local gossip. Two separate and very respected medieval chroniclers wrote about it completely independently of each other. And get this, one of them, Ralph of Coggeshall, he claimed he got his story directly from Sir Richard de Cown, the actual knight who sheltered the children. So you see, this isn't just folklore, it's documented history.
Okay, so with that historical record established, now we can turn to the kids themselves. Because their behavior, and eventually the girls' own words, well, they provide the most incredible clues in this entire mystery.
So when they were first taken in, the children refused all food. They were clearly starving, but they wouldn't touch bread or meat or anything. Then came the breakthrough. Someone brought in some raw broad beans still in their pods, and the kids just grabbed them and ate them like they were the best thing they'd ever tasted. Tragically, the boy was just too weak, and he died shortly after. But the girl, she adapted. She started eating other things, and as she got healthier, her green skin slowly faded away to a normal color. Eventually, she even learned English and was baptized into the church.
And once she could finally speak the language, well, she told her story. And what a story it was. She claimed they came from a place called St. Martin's Land, a place that existed in a perpetual twilight, where the sun never really shines.
And she described this homeland in a bit more detail. She said, for one, that everything there was green. She also mentioned this wide river that separated them from a much brighter land, a place they could see but could never actually reach.
So how did they end up in Woolpit? According to her, she and her brother were just tending their father's flocks one day when they heard this loud, incredible sound, like bells. They followed the sound into a cave, walked in darkness for what felt like a very long time, and then, boom, they suddenly emerged into the blindingly bright sun of the Woolpit harvest fields.
What an incredible story, right? But is it some kind of portal fantasy? Or is there a more rational explanation hiding just beneath the surface? Let's try and decode this mystery.
Over the centuries, you can imagine, the explanations have been all over the map. We're talking fairies, otherworldly beings, maybe even extraterrestrials or visitors from another dimension. But there is one historical theory that has gained the most traction among scholars, because it just connects all the bizarre details in this really remarkable way. And what makes this historical theory so darn compelling is how it systematically explains away every single mysterious clue. Let's just break it down, right? The green skin, turns out, that can be explained by a real medical condition. The unknown language, probably Flemish or Dutch. The strange clothes, yeah, that fits with Flemish weaving styles. St. Martin's Land, well, there's a village with a nearly identical name just a few miles away. And the whole twilight and cave thing, that could easily be a traumatized child's memory of being lost in a dense forest or wandering through old mine passages.
Okay, let's start with the most dramatic clue of all, the green skin. This wasn't magic. It was almost certainly a condition called chlorosis, also known as green sickness. It's a very real type of anemia caused by severe malnutrition. It literally gives the skin a distinct greenish tint. And here's the key. It's completely reversible with a proper iron-rich diet, which is exactly what happened with the girl.
And as for St. Martin's Land? Well, it turns out there's a real village called Fornham St. Martin. And guess how far away it is from Woolpit? Just 7 miles. Back in the 12th century, it was a known settlement for Flemish immigrants. The close proximity and the nearly identical name, I mean, that's almost too perfect to be a coincidence.
So that leads to the next question. Why would 2 Flemish children be wandering around lost and starving? Well, during this time, Flemish immigrants who had originally been welcomed as skilled weavers were facing intense persecution under King Henry II. In fact, in 1173, a major battle took place right at Fornham, where Flemish mercenaries were defeated and slaughtered. It's not just possible, it's highly probable that these children were orphans fleeing the violence that likely killed their parents, and they just got lost in the dense forest nearby.
So how does all of this tragedy, become the legend we know today? Well, when you start putting all the pieces together, a fantastical story about visitors from another world, it transforms into something much more human. And, honestly, much more tragic.
So really, you've got 2 completely different ways to see the story. On the one hand, you have the medieval view. It's a miracle, a wondrous event, proof of otherworldly realms like the fairy world existing just beyond our own. But then you have the modern view. It's a tragedy. It's the story of 2 orphaned, traumatized, and malnourished refugee children fleeing violence and persecution.
The story doesn't just end in mystery, though. The surviving girl, who was given the name Agnes, well, she didn't just disappear. Research actually suggests she grew up and married a royal official named Richard Bear. The green girl from another world basically assimilated and went on to live a pretty normal life.
But her story? Oh, it never faded away. I mean, to this day, the village sign in Woolpit still proudly depicts the 2 green children. The legend continues to be debated by historians and folklorists, and it's inspired tons of pop culture, books, operas, even TV shows. It's just one of those stories that refuses to be forgotten.
And that really leaves us with a final, thought-provoking question. What's actually more wondrous? The fairy tale about 2 children stepping through a portal from some green twilight world? Or is it the truth that's likely hiding behind it? The story of 2 refugee children who survived so much trauma and persecution that their tragic reality was so strange, the only way history could remember it was as a myth.